This is CBC Vancouver News.
One of the first things we're going to do is make sure that families in British Columbia see $1,000 in relief immediately in a middle-income tax cut.
We are left vulnerable as a province if we do not provide the food that we need for our people in British Columbia.
From promises of tax cuts to greater support for BC farmers, we bring you the latest from the provincial election campaign. Also, a wildfire in BC's West Kootenay region has forced dozens from their homes and temporarily shut down a portion of Highway 3. Plus,
NITEP came to be, there was still so much Indigenous racism in education. There were still residential schools functioning at that time.
An Indigenous education program at UBC is marking a major milestone, decades of honoring tradition and reconciliation. Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. From tax cuts to greater support for BC farmers, it's been a busy weekend on the provincial election campaign trail so far. As Shoria Chethri reports, the economy was high on the agenda.
We're just getting started.
New Democrats leader David Eby was in Surrey Sunday afternoon, pledging to put money back into the pockets of middle-class British Columbians.
First things we're going to do is make sure that families in British Columbia see $1,000 in relief immediately.
Eby says he's making a tax relief promise that will benefit more than 90% of people living in BC. If re-elected, his plan, being touted as a middle-class tax cut, would raise the amount of individual income exempt from provincial tax by $10,000 annually. But one expert is asking, why now, when the NDP government has had years to implement more financial relief?
This government has introduced many taxes and that has made the life in British Columbia less affordable. For example, we have the speculation and vacancy tax, the additional school tax.
He says more substantial tax cuts are needed for BC businesses as well.
This can't happen in vacuum. This needs to be accompanied by policies that make it easier and safer for businesses to operate in BC.
Eby's announcement comes less than 1 week after Conservative leader John Rustad promised a tax relief plan for renters and homeowners that would exempt $3,000 per month of rent and mortgage interest costs from provincial income taxes by 2029. A move which the NDP leader says wouldn't have an immediate impact.
Rustad rebate? More like Rustad long wait.
The economy took center stage in the provincial election campaign trail this weekend. On Saturday, Rustad, speaking at a dairy farm in Abbotsford, committed to reviewing Agricultural Land Commission regulations and strengthen BC's farming sector by cutting red tape and protecting agricultural rights.
We are left vulnerable as a province if we do not provide the food that we need for our people in British Columbia. And that's why our target is to double food production in British Columbia.
Meanwhile, in Chilliwack, Eby promised to boost the production services tax credit to encourage the hiring of local film industry workers. As the election campaign enters its second week, leaders prepare to go head-to-head at the provincial debate on October 8th. Shoria Chethri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Tactical evacuations were underway near the community of Christina Lake this afternoon due to an out-of-control wildfire. The Kootenay Boundary Regional District says initially 42 homes were evacuated and another 208 properties were put on evacuation alert. Since then, the evacuation order and alerts have been rescinded. The Spalding Creek wildfire also affected a portion of Highway 3 when downed power lines caused by the fire temporarily shut down the highway near East Lake Drive. It has since reopened to single-lane alternating traffic. Both the local fire department and BC Wildfire Service are responding to the blaze. Christina Lake is located about 21 kilometers east of Grand Forks, where another tactical evacuation took place just days ago due to a wildfire that originated in Washington state. Also in BC's Kootenay region, multiple ferry sailings have been cancelled this long weekend after 170 ferry workers began job action and refused to work overtime. The union says its members are seeking a wage increase of about 20% and says staffing shortages have made extensive overtime a regular occurrence.
They're looking for the same pay rate that they achieved in the last round of negotiations with BC Ferries.
He says ferries operated by Waterbridge will be affected by the job action, which includes several ferry routes crossing Kootenay Lake, Arrows Lakes, and a handful of small rivers in the area. The Upper Arrow Lake ferry between Shelter Bay and Galena Bay saw its late afternoon and evening sailings canceled both Saturday and Sunday. The Upper Arrow Lake ferry is set to suspend all sailings between 5 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Tuesday if the overtime ban continues. The union and operators say unscheduled cancellations on other routes could also occur, and that means residents may face lengthy delays to get to work, school, or medical appointments. About 13,000 people on Vancouver Island can resume using water as normal after repairs were done on a water main break near Sooke. The Capital Regional District says the break was first found around 6 o'clock Friday morning on the water supply main leading to the Sooke River Road disinfection facility. People living in Sooke, East Sooke, parts of Juan de Fuca electoral area, and Sooke First Nation were told to reduce their water usage until repairs were completed today. The emergency department at Merritt's Nicola Valley Hospital will be closed until Tuesday morning. Interior Health says emergency medical care was unavailable throughout the day today and will not reopen until 8 o'clock Tuesday morning. The health authority says the closure was due to limited doctor availability. Residents are being told to go to Kamloops for emergency care instead. Last year, the Nicola Valley Hospital saw more than 10 emergency room closures due to staffing shortages. Merritt residents held several rallies protesting the closures and calling on the government to better staff the hospitals. The province has added more than 45,000 healthcare workers since 2017, but growing demand has meant the shortages have persisted. An Indigenous education program at UBC is marking a major milestone. As Maurice Katz reports, the program incorporates a legacy of traditional knowledge and aims to increase the number of Indigenous educators across the province.
This year, UBC's Indigenous Teacher Education Program, or NITEP, is celebrating its 50th anniversary.
And so we often think about that light as new understandings, new learnings.
As an Indigenous scholar and educator, Hare says traditional knowledge can help address some of society's most pressing issues, like climate change and food security.
We need more sustainable and loving ways of being in this world, and it is going to come from other ways of knowing.
The program began in response to a growing recognition that Indigenous students need a culturally relevant approach to their education, both as learners and as future educators. Now, NITEP has graduated close to 500 Indigenous educators in BC, and this year's cohort at UBC Vancouver welcomes 32 new students, the largest in NITEP's history.
I think it's spectacular. When NITEP came to be, there was still so much, Indigenous racism in education. There were still residential schools functioning at that time. So the bravery and courage it took for those Indigenous individuals to step into a space that essentially wanted to eliminate them in ways took so much courage.
Educators say a key priority for the program is to create pathways to post-secondary education for Indigenous students. Katzie First Nations Chief Grace George says it's important for the younger generation to learn the history as a part of reconciliation.
I think it's incredibly crucial for everyone to have access to the knowledge, not only non-Indigenous students, but Indigenous students as well, who may not have had the opportunity to learn about our culture.
Johnson only learned about NITEP after starting university. She hopes to see the program continue to grow.
It was nice because I grew up kind of disconnected from my Métis culture. So it was nice to be able to meet others who kind of had that same experience and grow closer to community, to others, and to myself as a result.
It's a sentiment that she hopes to provide for her students as a teacher. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
The 15th annual Culture Days celebration is underway, highlighting art, culture, and creative experiences from across Canada. Here in BC, Pinky Wong dove into Vancouver's history through a unique collection of antique photographs and postcards.
So you get on the phone. Hello, I'd like to speak to Mutual 6, please.
Dialing into the past at the Rhodey House Museum. The Heritage House was built in 1893 for Gustav Rhodey, Vancouver's first bookbinder.
We are just visiting in Vancouver, and I kind of read about this, and I wanted to kind of understand the history of this place. Yeah. It's very insightful. At least we understand about the family and how people lived during that time.
The heritage and custom is beautiful.
The museum is celebrating Culture Days with a collective spotlight exhibition.
Some of their collections you wouldn't, you would see in other museums, like big museums and that kind of thing. And so for them to want to share their collections with the public and their knowledge, it's a really rare opportunity and a special opportunity, I think, for the public to get to come in and see some of these things, and they're not, behind a case all the time.
Here we have something that's quite unusual. It's called an orotone. There's one there, there's 1, 2, 3 there, there's several downstairs. We're the only museum in Canada that has an orotone. And what an orotone is a black and white positive photograph, not negative, with the emulsion on the back of a sheet of glass. Then it's rubbed with banana oil and gold dust and creates a gold photograph in a 17-step process. So that and it was locally here in Canada and in Seattle because of the gold rush.
Some of the exhibitions show visitors a version of the city that many don't remember.
Although I live in Vancouver, it's nice to actually learn about the history of it.
This is a postcard featuring Joe Fortes, over 100 years ago, a beloved swimming teacher. When you go down to English Bay today, you see an entirely different view.
A look back at how the city used to be and how it lives on in these photographs. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
The 7th annual Thai Festival Vancouver was a treat for all the senses this weekend at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Guests were welcomed by traditional Thai music, but for many, it was all about the food, both savory and sweet. And there were prizes to be won as well, including a return ticket to Thailand on Air Canada, one of the sponsors of this year's event. After the break, time may be running out for tens of thousands of Canadians to leave Lebanon as a full-scale war with Israel looms. We'll bring you that after the break. Tens of thousands of Canadians in Lebanon are at risk, and time may be running short to help them flee. The CBC's JP Tasker has more.
In Beirut, bombs light up the night sky, terrorizing the people who live there.
Oh my God, there's so much panic, there's chaos, there's so much fear.
Lebanese Canadian Ahmed Araji is holed up in the city. It feels a lot less safe than even a few weeks ago when he arrived.
What's happening in Lebanon is beyond words.
And with the death of Hezbollah's leader and thousands fleeing southern Lebanon, the fear is the worst is yet to come.
Israel bombs, Canada peace!
In Ottawa, protesters marched against the bombings. Some have relatives in harm's way.
My family is terrified. As with every Lebanese person, they don't know where Israel is going to strike next.
Ottawa is telling Canadians to get out now before the fighting spirals. A message the government has given for months, now with new urgency.
We're saying to Canadians in Lebanon, please leave now. I can't be more direct than this.
Ottawa has reserved seats on commercial airlines for Canadians and permanent residents who want to leave. The flights get them out of Lebanon, dropping them off in Cyprus. The passengers have to pay Ottawa back for the flight and then find their own way home to Canada.
The bombing of the southern part of Beirut is so enormous, much more than in 2006. I fear for the safety of our citizens.
Louis Delaumier helped orchestrate the chaotic and costly evacuation of some 15,000 Canadians and their families in 2006, when Israel and Hezbollah were last at war. He says Canada should do more than arrange flights.
It might get even worse before it gets better. So you have to evacuate now. I think that's the proper thing to do. And Ottawa is not clear on what exactly they're doing.
Ottawa is preparing for a possible evacuation. More military personnel have just been deployed to the region. Any sort of rescue would be by boat from the bombed-out port in Beirut. That's why Ottawa is eager to avoid this kind of evacuation and why they're urging people to get on a plane while they still can. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Hurricane Helene may be gone from the U.S. South, but her story is far from over. People remain missing, searches go on, and the cost is only starting to be tallied. The CBC's Ithel Musa reports.
Charlene Huggins is surrounded by debris and devastation. She lives in the small coastal town of Horseshoe Beach in Florida. But now, her home where 5 generations of her family have lived is barely standing.
It breaks your heart. It just devastates you. I don't know. There's no other way to describe it.
Hurricane Helene is the most powerful storm Florida's Big Bend region has ever experienced, and some are still coming to terms with it.
That's our view on Thursday. This is the devastation that you go through living in a coastal town.
The massive storm snuffed out power for millions. It flooded roads, destroyed bridges, and caused catastrophic flooding from Florida to Virginia. Some of the worst devastation is in North Carolina, where officials say hundreds remain unaccounted for, and 30 deaths have been confirmed in one county alone.
I don't think I or anyone else living here expected to see what we saw. When you turn the corner and you see your community just full of buildings and trash and floating boathouses and floating homes, it just sort of takes your breath away.
Helene has killed dozens of people in at least 5 states, and days after the storm hit, search crews are still rescuing people from their homes, despite incredible personal hardships.
Many of the first responders who are working right now do not have water. They don't have electricity. And they're leaving their families to come help others.
This storm may become one of the most costly in modern U.S. history as damages soar into the billions, yet still.
But we will come back. Good Lord goes before us, and we will come back.
People like Charlene Huggins are determined to return home and rebuild. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Washington.
Here we have a live shot of Burrard Inlet tonight facing the North Shore. I'll have your full forecast coming up next. All right, it's time now to take a peek at our forecast. Let's begin with current temperatures around the province. Up in Dease Lake, -3 for your nighttime low, 0 in both Fort St. John and Prince George. A little bit of thunderstorm activity in Kelowna overnight, and 6 on the island for Victoria. Moving into tomorrow's cast, 7 and a mix of sun and clouds in Dease Lake, 11 in Fort St. John, a little bit of precipitation in both Terrace and Bella Coola with a high of 12 in Bella Coola, 15 and sunny in Kamloops and 14 in Golden, and 17 on the island for both Tofino and Victoria. Metro Vancouver is going to see a very sunny Truth and Reconciliation Day with a high of 15, but that rain is going to return on Tuesday with a high of 13. The Vancouver Whitecaps have qualified for the MLS Cup playoffs, clinching their spot after Saturday's 1-1 draw against the Portland Timbers, and fans are pretty excited about it.
They got really successful, and I think they still have some stuff to work on, but overall, they're a really good team.
I know they've been building the team for a few years, and there's definitely some hype around them. If they get to the playoffs, I'm sure most of the city will jump on the bandwagon because it's probably fun for everybody.
I'm not the best of the best. I just like the Whitecaps. Is like I have 2 Whitecaps hats that are all signed, like about the players, pretty much. So you could say that I'm a Whitecaps fan.
The Whitecaps can claim the Cascadia Cup for the 2nd year in a row if they defeat the Seattle Sounders on Wednesday night. A Port Moody-raised magician recently performed her dream stunt at the Cowichan exhibition, escaping from a straitjacket while hanging 30 meters in the air. We spoke to her about her performances around the world and her inspiration.
Do whatever you want with it and set no boundary, and magic is a beautiful thing where you can make anything that you like. I feel more myself than anything else in my life, I think. The great thing about it is I'm not a character, I'm not acting, I'm not pretending to be someone else, I'm just this bigger version of myself. It's been a goal since I was a little kid. I fell in love with Harry Houdini at an early age, and I used to fill my notebooks with sketches of me doing his stunts and hanging from a crane. And it's been years in the making of finding a way to do it. And I got the opportunity a few months ago. And really the point of it was to accomplish a goal and then also inspire, hopefully start the path of inspiring the next generation of performers. I've been doing it a long time. I started performing it upside down when I was 14. So I've probably done it hundreds of times now. This is the highest, it was about 100 feet. When I was little, I started collecting road cases and spending all of my money on these giant cases, hoping one day I'd have stuff to fill them with, and now I do. So I have a big collection of road cases, more illusions on this side, and then I have rigging stuff. And then on these road cases are a bunch of sketches for stunts I want to do in the future. You definitely face it where people think that you got things just because you're a girl and not because you work for it. There's all of these things where they think there's quotas where they need to have a woman in the show so you get it. And I think there definitely are scenarios where I think I have gotten things because I'm a woman, but I've had the ability to then turn around and work my ass off and find a way to earn everything that I've been given and not just take it because it comes my way.
Well, she's definitely not afraid of heights. That is your late news for this Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. For news at any hour, you can always head to our website. Hope you have a great night.